So what I want to do right away is start off by introducing Bruce, who's going to share a few words with us. So, Bruce Croxon. Bruce draws his business enthusiasm from venturing off the beaten path, approaching potential opportunities from unique angles. Whether it's seeing an opportunity with a nascent technology or seizing an idea off-piste in the wilds of Whistler, BC, Bruce defined entrepreneurial philosophy as upbringing with a Jamaican mother and a British father as part of the motivation that drove him towards success, and he celebrates his mixed-race heritage. Bruce started his fortune by being an early adopter in the digital realm. Capitalizing on the growing interest in phone telepersonals combined with the timely development of the internet, he spotted an opportunity to earn some serious coin. In 1987, Bruce co-founded LavaLife. So probably a few of us are familiar with LavaLife. There you go. All right. So I've got actually family members who met through LavaLife and have been married for a number of years. So chairman and CEO and guided LavaLife to the position of category leader, achieving revenues close to $100 million prior to its sale in 2004. Bruce is going to be talking and sharing with us his insights on collaboration, technology, social networking, and success in business. So please give a warm round of welcome to Bruce Croxon.
Hello. Thank you, Shane. Well, I am going to talk to you about, it is Social Media Week, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the reality of life in the digital age, and I lived a little bit of it coming over here because my only prep for this event was to be told by the CBC people that Jim Treliving was going to get up and make a speech, lead this whole thing off, and I was going to come in for some Q&A and basically didn't really have to prepare much. It's going to be a piece of cake. So on the way over here, Jim informs me, digital media, I don't really do a lot of that stuff. You're on. So one of the realities of the digital age is that you have to be able to be ready to pivot and change at a moment's notice, and I'm living it right here and now. So that's just me forewarning you that this is going to be an informal session. There's no prepared script, but I do have some things that I can pass along from my experience. And yes, my experience has been in the area of digital media. So I think it's relevant, and I'm very happy to be here. Vancouver is like a second home to me. I spent a couple of years up in Whistler, based there in 98 and 99. Look for every excuse I can get to come out to the West Coast, so it's almost like a no-brainer to come out and do this for me. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about some of the lessons I've learned in building companies. I'm going to take a leap of faith, and as I look around the audience, I'm going to assume that a lot of you guys are small business people. How many people are running their own show or doing their own thing as entrepreneurs in the audience? So this is great, right? So who else would be free during the day, right? Most other people are pounding the clock. So I assume that. So I think it is quite relevant that, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur, and I've learned a couple of lessons in building my own companies, which I'll pass on today. And then I think what we're going to do after is some Q&A. Again, all informal. The great thing about having an audience this size is we can really, get interactive. I'll talk a little bit about how Dragon's Den really works, some of the things you don't see behind the scenes. And then Jimmy's going to come out and actually contribute to this event. Jim, which would be nice. And then we can take it from there. So I heard someone ask, or Shane in his introduction, how many people have heard of LavaLife? Okay, so that doesn't surprise me, because at one time we had a brand recognition of like 98% in Canada. I think we were second only to Tim Hortons at one time in terms of the number of Canadians that knew the brand. How many people have actually used the service? So you guys are a bunch of liars. See, I know that that's not true. I ask this all the time, and statistically that's impossible, because I know how many of you probably have. But this was the battle we had to face. LavaLife was one of the first social media sites in the world. Okay, I like to say, and I'm very proud of it, I'm a big supporter of technology business in Canada to this day, but the real first social media sites came out of Toronto in the late 80s when we were running these services over interactive television. And the internet service, the CBC building, it's got these little spots where your mic blanks out. It really happened in Canada and it was pioneered here. But one of our biggest challenges of running a dating site was that for many years, it wasn't a cool thing to do. I mean, if you were using an online dating site to meet somebody, it kind of implied that you couldn't meet them any other way. So one of our big jobs in creating that brand was to transform it from something that had a stigma to it to something that was cool, hip, and if you weren't using technology to meet your dating requirements, then you were somehow missing out. And I think we were very successful with Lava Life in doing that. Obviously not 100% successful because, you know, how many of you used it? And I see these hands like creeping up, but it's still a bit of a sheepish topic. But we started out with a brand called Telepersonals in the late 80s, and I can guarantee you didn't come into work on Monday morning talking about the great date you'd had off of Telepersonals on the weekend. It was a very underground kind of back of the classified service, but that's how the whole social media thing that we take so much for granted today because it's part of every business almost online, but it all was pioneered in Canada in the late 80s, and I'm very happy to say I was a part of it. It's funny, you know, I can talk and I will talk a little bit more about digital technology and social media, but the real lessons I took away from Lava, and I think this would be relevant to those of you that are starting up your own companies or, you know, in the process of growing small to medium-sized firms. The area that I really learned the most and I put down to our success is under the title of organizational development. Now, when you think about Lava Life, organizational development probably isn't the first thing that pops into your head. You know, Lava was probably responsible for more one-night stands, as I think about it, than Timmy's sold donuts. You know, it really was that kind of service. Anything went. So what do you mean organizational development? Well, Lava had at its height 600 employees. We topped out at $100 million in revenue. It was a lot of people's first job. And we decided pretty early that if we were going to build a company that was going to last, we needed to build a culture. And when I look back on all the lessons I've learned and being in the right place at the right time and all the bullshit you hear about luck playing a part and, you know, you got to work hard, and I'm going to get to that in a sec. But as I look back, building a company from 4 partners to 600 employees, the most important part for me was identifying what we wanted the culture to be. So let me give you an example. 2 of our core values at the company were teamwork and open-mindedness. So how do we bring those 2 values to life? Because, you know, you walk into any company in North America, you're going to see, yep, teamwork is what we're all about. I bet 98% of corporate values around North America have teamwork as one of the things, and they define it. But is it really a team, and how do you make it work? So when we went to hire somebody, we'd put out the ad, get the candidates in, you know, get down to the 5 or 6 finalists, and we'd put them all in one room. And we'd come in and we'd hand them a sheet of paper, and on that sheet of paper it was titled the NASA Man on the Moon exercise. And it was an actual test put out by NASA as they were training their astronauts. And what it asked you to do was pretend you've crash landed on the moon. Here is a list of items that you will need for your survival. There's maybe 12 or 13 of them. And what I want you to do is rank order which of those items are the most important. And, you know, you have like food, solar, blankets, you know, I can't remember the list, but there was a list of relevant items that would allow you to survive on the moon. So everyone worked through that individually, and there's a right answer. It was NASA. There was a right order of priority, and we added up the scores, and, you know, some guys were very intuitive and thought it through, and their score was okay. Others didn't have a clue. And then we divided the 6 people into 2 groups. And we got 3 people working and asked them to redo the exercise. So you 3 work on this exercise, you 3 work on this exercise, and then give us the results. in 15 years of running that test, I never ever saw an individual score beat a team score, i.e. when the collaboration happened, the answers were better. So this was our way of not only seeing how a potential candidate would work within a team, but it was also our way of driving home the point that we were building a culture here where we expected people to work together. You had to leave your ego at the door. So if you're looking at a guy and he was just so convinced that power bar should be the #1 item for surviving on the moon, and he wouldn't back down, we're watching them, right? So we're watching this exercise happen, and how much do you dig in, right? Versus saying, geez, I never thought of it that way, good point. And that way we really started to screen out team players versus non-team players. And then we reviewed them, you know, and your bonus was tied to if you were a good team player or not, and really embedded it in the culture. The other one that sticks out for me is the open-minded value. You can imagine Lavalife, right? If you guys remember the site, we had, you know, 3 sections: dating, it's been a while, dating, long-term relationships, and intimate encounters. And in intimate encounters, anything went, you know, so you could walk into a boardroom around our place and we'd be talking about everything from, you know, what conventional marriage looked like to what the latest gay fetish was, you know, and anything in between. So you can imagine if you came into our company and you were homophobic or, you know, didn't believe in premarital sex, and there's nothing wrong with not believing in premarital sex, to each his own. I mean, it's the Christian right. I mean, that's a very important thing to them. You wouldn't have been a good fit for our company, or you wouldn't have been able to contribute because you'd be in judgment mode all the time. So open-minded value was a very important component for who we brought into the company. So that is a very, you know, somewhat of a long way to bring alive, you know, a pretty critical point that I've taken away from 15, 20 years of building companies. Surround yourself with people that think like you. This is especially true about business partners, right? I mean, hang out with people you like hanging out with. Look for people that have the same ethics and values. And then when you're building a company, hire people in that vein. And take the time to actually articulate what those values are, you know, so that you can hire against it. Because when you're doing all the hiring, it's fine. But if you latch onto a good idea, you're not going to be the one doing all the hiring. It's going to be the next layer down. So what songbook are they going from when they do their hiring? Well, we had teamwork, open-mindedness, and 3 other core values that were very important to building a culture. So surprising as it may sound, you know, great technology, you know, dating, kind of going into the new age and being in the right place at the right time and all that stuff. When I look back on it, we got through a lot of hard times by having built a very, very resilient culture. And, you know, that's a big lesson learned for me. Life of an entrepreneur. There's a lot of people going around talking about, it's sexy again to be an entrepreneur, right? You read about, you know, Facebook and, you know, Groupon, not so much these days, but, you know, there's a lot of kids walking around making big money, what seems to be very, very quickly. Those stories are very rare. The reality, you know, and I'm glad to be speaking with Jimmy again today because, you know, he embodies it, right? I mean, you want to talk about the qualities that are required to be a successful entrepreneur. It's built over a lifetime, in reality. Companies are built over a very long period of time, generally speaking. The digital age kind of messes with that a little bit, but those overnight success stories are very few and far between. So, you know, it's tempting to get up and say, you know, this is a great life. Entrepreneurship is fantastic. Go for it. Because look at what can happen. You can get on Dragon's Den and you could sell your company for a lot of money. Yeah, you could do that. But part of my message, I think, and the responsible message is it really isn't a life for everybody. And I've really come to this, especially in the last 10 years, because I got 2 little kids. They're 7 and 9. And they're at that age. I'm looking around the audience. I don't know. It's mostly younger than me. So, but I started the parenthood thing kind of late. But I've got them right at that age where they still think I'm someone kind of special, right? And they listen to what I'm saying, and they generally do what I say, and they're trying to please me. So I got them right where I want them, right? How do I form these little guys? And, it's tempting to, like, they see me on this show, and my son's starting to ask about, well, how did this happen? How did that happen? And I don't know I'm kind of in a dilemma, because the reality of an entrepreneur's life, and, Jim will tell you this when he comes out, as long as he hasn't taken off on me and really left me out here on my own, is the reality of it is it's a lot of hard work, and there's no substitute for it. I get asked a lot, well, Bruce, how do you achieve life-work balance as an entrepreneur? I just kind of shake my head, because most successful entrepreneurs I know don't really have a life-work balance. It's all work. And, that's kind of a sobering thought when you think about it. And, you look at a lot of entrepreneurs, there's something not quite right about us, that you're willing to sacrifice what some of us have sacrificed in the name of building a company or doing it on your own. So you really got to want it, because the reality is it's a lot of this. And I sort of call it my 51-40. I've got an analogy, I put a title on it called 51-49. The reality of running your own show, and this might resonate with a lot of you, is about pushing the noodle ahead 51% for that inevitable 49% that you take it in the teeth. And that net 2, you take it at the end of every month or every quarter or sometimes every year, and you've moved your company ahead a couple points. Because if you get people up here telling you, or you listen to people speak that say they haven't gone through the 49 and the mistakes and the dips and the hard times, they're lying to you. We've all made a ton of mistakes. And if you're the kind of person that comes home and kicks the dog, or isn't a good partner to your wife, or isn't a good parent because of the pressures you're feeling at work, and you're lying awake at night week after week because you're dealing with the inevitable 49% failures, it might not be for you, right? At what price is it worth it to be going through all that? So it may appear glamorous at times. Behind the scenes, and I'm sure you all know that are doing your own gig, it's a lot of hard work, right? You live it, breathe it every single minute of the day. And that's just the way it is. Is that something how I want my kids to live? I'm not so sure. You won't ever hear me taking a shot at somebody that goes to work every day, collects a paycheck, and then skis, mountain bikes, surfs, whatever it was like they like to do on the weekend, and has hobbies and lives a balanced lifestyle. I've actually often been envious of it. I'm just here to tell you that if you want the entrepreneurial lifestyle, it ain't that. And especially social media week, right? When I started in the digital age, in the late 80s, interactive telephone, before the internet was really commercialized, we at least had the benefit of the technology being kind of complicated, and it was expensive. So if you were onto an idea, you built something, you put it, the technology when we started telepersonals took up, at least the size of this floor, right? And it was expensive stuff. I used to walk in there, the tech guys Bruce, just stay away from this, don't trip on anything. I was the least technically minded guy in the whole company. But the point is, it was a barrier to entry, right? You couldn't just walk into the technology game. Today, guys are coding in their basement. It's hosted in the cloud. You can be up and running in a business in a matter of months, and there's no secrets. Once you have an idea, it was always the case that if you had an idea, you could kind of count on the fact that somebody somewhere in the world was thinking the same thing, right? There's very few really original ideas. But today, the difference is when someone has an idea, someone's blogging about it, somebody's emailing about it. If it's picked up in a media outlet in Singapore, it's in US the next minute. There's no secrets. So you got to be really, when you have an idea, you got to get on your bike and go. You got to really, really move fast. And that's the digital age. So for those of you that are doing stuff in my area, which is digital, everything I've said about hard work and what you have to do and how fast you have to move is triply important. It's even more so. Are you giving me that? No? Keep going? Keep going. Say again? You're going to... Oh, no, I'm okay. Well, a little bit more. A little bit more. So Dragon's Den. If you tell... Yes, he really is that much of an asshole. I get asked that all the time. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway. That's the first question that I get coming out the gate, so I might as well get it out of the way. But the guy that you're going to hear from, Jim, when he comes out, is not. Real deal. They're all the real deal. 5 minutes. Okay, Kevin is probably the hardest working guy I've ever met. I think he kind of likes that we rib him and, you know, call him an asshole, because that's how he comes across. He's really not. All of these guys, I've never been around such naked ambition in all my life, such hard-working people as the other dragons on this panel. It's been quite an experience. So what you might not know about the show, and we can get into Q&A and ask whatever you want when Jim comes out, but what you don't see, we get about 40 minutes with each pitcher, right? That gets edited down to about 7. So it's not like we're making a hard and fast business decision on 7 minutes. We have a little bit longer, but you'd never make a business deal on 40 minutes, right? So when you see us holding our hands up and say we're in, what that really means is we're very interested and we're going to commit resources to looking further into it and doing the due diligence. So when you hear about deals being made and then the gap between the ones that are made and the ones that are closed, they go sideways for a whole pile of reasons. It really is a mirror of real life. You know, people change their minds. The numbers weren't what they were presented on the show. You know, people didn't want to do a deal anyway. They just wanted the exposure of hitting 2.5 million people, which is a very smart marketing thing to do for some products and services. So there is a lot of reasons why deals don't close. But I can tell you that everyone that comes on the show and that we say we're going to go do a deal with or pursue, everybody gets called back, everybody gets the diligence, and I think the show has been responsible for an incredible amount of learning for small business in Canada. So it makes me very proud to be part of it for that reason. Arlene, Jim, Bruce, David Chilton, the wealthy barber. I think he's going to be very good on the show. I don't know if anyone's seen the first, we had 1 or 2 episodes, but the guy's funny, man, I tell you. Like, he's very, very dry sense of humor, very smart guy. So I think you're going to like watching him. And usually I talk a bit more about Jim, but he's here to talk for himself. So is he still here? Or did he go for a nap or something? Where is he? What? What's he doing? Like, 25 minutes isn't long enough to leave me out here on my own when I didn't intend to make a speech. So, oh, here he comes. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jim. Yes. Very nice of you. Watch it. I'm usually there to help you up on the steps. You know, very nice of you to join me. Thank you.
Thanks. Are these working?
Here, use mine now.
Hi.
There you go.
Thanks, Bruce, for the introduction.
You're welcome.
And the speech on IT, technology. I love all that stuff. I just got my new BlackBerry. And it's working really well. It rolls, mine. Does yours roll, or do you got the screen that you touch on?
I went into Jim's house the other day and I saw him dialing the phone.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a crank I still had.
Crank.
Yeah. I loved your speech. I think you did a lot of great things in talking about your company, and this is CBC. And yeah, the technology is very high here. We got cameras that don't work sometimes, and including microphones. What's happening with the business of the social media? And I think I can talk a little bit about it, because we've gone from 0 to probably 10 people in our organization. That's all they do is look after both myself and my partner, and tweeting and doing all that sort of thing. I do some of those myself, and once in a while. But we got a great organization now that does that for us in our organization. And I think that if you're not on social media and of some sort, and you're doing nothing with or not working with social media, then you're going to be so far behind you'll never get caught up. I've often said that when I started out, you could write a check on Friday, and it wouldn't get cashed in the bank till Friday or till the following week, maybe 5 or 7 days. We used to call it a line of credit. The bank called it overdraft. They didn't like that. But what we did was, when you do it now, the swipe of that card is instant. So anything you're doing out there in the real world right now is all about that. And I think that we had to ourselves pick up, and even in our organization, get to the point now where it is almost a half of our marketing department is all of social media. I get people working with me from Dallas, where I live, and also to Toronto, and our office in Toronto, or Montreal, so we can do it in French as well. And also we do it in Vancouver. So it is a huge piece of the whole fiber that we're doing in business today. And I've often said, and we talk about this every day now, if you're not on social media or got it in your mind, then you're way, way behind, and you may never get caught up. That's how important it is to us. I think that what Bruce was saying, or with his company, I know with our company, Boston Pizza will actually be 50 years old in 2 years. So we're going to be celebrating with all our franchisees. Thank you. And I'd like to think that when I first started in the business and when I see it today, what we've built, and it isn't what I built, it's what we have built as a team. My partner and myself, and we put some fantastic people together that really taken us to a whole new level. We're in 3 countries now. I live in the U.S. because we're opening in the U.S., but we're in 23 states in the U.S. We've got 364 stores as of today in Canada, and we open one usually every month somewhere. And we also got Mexico. And for the people that go to Mexico from here, we just opened our 4th store, and we're building 7 more. The volume of business in Mexico is phenomenal right now. The growth is huge. I can't even believe the numbers when I first did it. So we've been in Mexico now for just coming up 10 years, and we hope to have close to 80 stores in the next 5 years down there. So that's what we do, and we're also working on Brazil. So that gives you some idea what we do. And that's where we're at now, and that's what I'm trying to do, is build, build, build. And
don't forget about your book, Jimmy. He's been on a book tour for the last 2 weeks. He's just launched a book called Decisions, and I'm 3/4 of the way through. Got to decide whether to read the last quarter. Just kidding. I love it. It's a great book.
You like pictures?
Yeah, I would have liked more pictures. It's a great book, and the thing I like about it, it's written in plain business language, very much like Jim speaks himself, and it's a great read. So I would heartily recommend picking that up. Now, do you want to do some Q&A, Mal? Okay. Any questions anybody has about anything we might have said or haven't said? Probably feel free, because we're here for a bit.
We're ready to answer all the questions you got.
Yes, sir.
Here.
Hi there. Yeah, you mentioned about the fact that you needed to get free-thinking people for your Love Life business, and who weren't tied to religious views and things like that. But then, weren't there people coming on there that were looking for religious relationships as well? Did you need somebody then that you might not have wanted to employ, but you need their expertise in order to put that information across?
Yeah, it's a great point. You know, the open-minded value, you wouldn't have found a person, if we did our job right on the open-minded value, you wouldn't find anybody in the company that had a bias against religious people, right? So if you brought somebody that was very religious into the company, though, you would have a bias against people that, you know, that didn't have a problem with premarital sex, right? Do you know what I mean? So it worked one way, but I wouldn't have thought it would have worked very well the other. And we were early enough that we were all things to all people. So it was a very very much about, we'll build this infrastructure, we'll give you categories so that you can feel comfortable. Like if you're in the long-term relationship section, you shouldn't expect as a woman to be hit on for a one-night stand on Friday night. But beyond that, we left it to you, right? So it was a very, very non-judgmental, open-minded environment. And my experience, not to get political or anything, but my experience with people that are ultra-religious is there's usually a built-in bias against people that lead alternative lifestyles. That's been my experience so far, and that's a general statement, I know, but that's, you know, that was our definition of being open-minded.
We just had to worry about pineapple.
Yeah, it's a food business.
What's this extra, what?
Don't worry about it. I'll explain it to you later.
Hey, this one's for Bruce. I want you to, if you could speak a little bit to your user base growth over the first 6 to 12 months, and whether you had any points that really triggered off or set off the user base.
So the first 6 to 12 months of launching the site?
Yeah, and what, if any, were the trigger points for
Growth?
Growth, yeah.
Whoa, it's taking me back. So we launched for free wherever we went, right? So generally, and that's a lot more common today, I mean, it's almost, you know, the competition for people's time when you launch a digital site is so intense that free isn't enough, because there's a lot of things you can do for free. But back when we started in the late 90s, it was pretty novel. Like we launched a site, we weren't looking for anything other than traffic. So because it was so new and such a new area, it took care of itself. Like it really was the first examples of viral adoption. And it's not surprising, because if you think about it, Jimmy's in the food business, we were in the relationship business. It takes me back to that university model we learned when we were at school, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Basically, when you've got a roof over your head, you've got food in your belly is the next thing you're looking for, and then you're usually looking for someone to lie down beside at night, and then it goes from there. So we were in a business that addressed basic human need. And when people found out there was a site they could go to address one of the basic human needs, it just took right off. So beyond that, our strategy was get a lot of people using the site for nothing, for free, and then they would show us what they really like to do online. And then we'd walk into the developers and say, you know what, this feature that we can develop and put on the site should address what people are the great thing about digital technology is you're getting the information in real time. You don't have to wait a month, right? So you'd go in the morning, hit a button, and a report would come out, said most of the people were hanging out on this area of the site doing this kind of activity. So let's go develop a lot more of that feature functionality. And every time we did a product upgrade, you saw the revenue and adoption and the viral effect just go through the roof. So it was a very, systematic. You got to listen to the system, hear what it's telling you, look at this is where people are hanging out, and then you'd develop a program to address it. But you just had to pay attention to what people were doing, and the technology allowed you to do that.
We have time for one more quick question. Anybody else? Back here at the back.
Thank you. This is a Dragon's Den question. Love the show. I think I've seen every episode, and it's been the best education for business for me as an entrepreneur. I noticed that throughout the seasons, especially in the first season, you see a big gap in understanding, and I was with people there too, in terms of the valuation. And that seems to be the financials and valuations are the biggest gap that's missing in terms of people in their business. What would you recommend for people to, kind of get a quick study and really learn how to constantly be evaluating their business in kind of real-time money and industry?
I think the first thing you have to do is make sure, and we were all in the same boat. The first time I went into business, I had no idea what the valuation meant. I think the greatest thing is that you have to learn that, and then try it out on your banker, try it out on your accountant that and talk about what really you think makes up the valuation. We have a lot of people come on the show, as you know, and talk about valuation, and we talk about it a lot. and they think their time spent in this business or any business they're starting is part of the valuation. It really isn't. What you got to look at is your value of what your company and where you go and what the consumer thinks it will be down the road. So I think you try that on and you build your system from there. I mean, without sales, have you seen what's different from Dragon's Den 1 and Dragon's Den in year 7? Like now, we don't talk about valuation very much because people have learned through watching the show and doing the things that they have to come on with